We're in it, gang. A historic shift is unfolding all around us. The fall of globalism, the rise of a new conservative age, and I explain exactly what's happening and why in my most important book yet, America Awakened. This book gives you the full picture, how we got here, what it means, and what you need to know to be on the right side of history. So don't wait. Go to americaawaken.us and join the early access list today. The next chapter has already begun.
You don't have a judicial warrant.
Keep going. Back up. Sorry. Back up. I'm gonna make this difficult. Sorry. Back up. Just back up. Let's not cause any problems.
I will let go when you show me the judicial warrant.
Where is it?
Sir, where is the warrant?
I have my hand here.
I would like to see the warrant.
I would like to see the warrant, and then I will let go. I would like to see the warrant, and then I will let go.
Take him in. Let's go.
You don't have the
authority to arrest U.S. citizens. Sir, you don't have the authority to arrest U.S. citizens. You don't have the, I'm not obstructing, I'm standing right here in the hallway. I asked to see the judicial warrant. By asking for a judicial warrant? You don't have the authority to arrest U.S. citizens asking for a judicial warrant.
Enjoying yourself?
You know,
Damn right.
covering everything.
Nothing better to do?
Honor your oath. How about honor your oath? How about that? Honor your oath. Oh, there you go.
You're supposed to get lost. You're supposed to get lost. This guy goes to jail. He goes to jail. Let's go. Put your hands behind your back. Yep.
Hey, my camera, bro.
Big mouth. Big mouth. They go to jail.
Hey, my glasses. You're breaking my glasses.
The fucking party's over.
What if I told you that we're witnessing the most spectacular display of criminal stupidity in modern American history? Where protesters thought they were fighting fascist ICE raids, but were actually defending multi-million-dollar international drug cartels. What if I told you that a single woman managed to assault 3 federal agents, throw a softball at a deputy, and punch an FBI agent in the head, all while defending what turned out to be the largest drug bust in Minnesota history? This isn't just about mistaken identity. This is about the complete intellectual collapse of progressive activism and why their movement has become indistinguishable from organized crime. Stay with me, because what we're about to see represents nothing less than the death of the Democrat Party in America. Welcome back to the channel, gang. I am your host, Dr. Steve, your patron professor, applying serious intellectual analysis to the complete chaos consuming American politics from the far left. So make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. Today, we are dissecting what may be the most perfect metaphor for progressive delusion ever captured on video. Activists literally fighting law enforcement to protect drug cartels while thinking they're defending immigrant families. We'll examine the psychological pathology behind this spectacular failure, the media's complicity in promoting criminal behavior, and why this represents a fundamental breakdown in basic cognitive function among the American left. If you're ready for an analysis that cuts through all the nonsense with surgical precision, subscribe now, because this is the kind of intellectual honesty that terrifies the establishment. And you know something else that's terrifying? Thinning hair, a bigger forehead, more strands in your brush. Are you noticing that? Well, you're not alone. Stress, aging, hormones, and nutrient deficiencies can all trigger hair loss. But no worries, we got you covered. The Wellness Company has a doctor-formulated solution that works from within and on the surface. It's called Roots. It's a tropical hydrogel powered by 7 peptides that support the body's natural repair processes to promote visibly thicker, fuller hair. With consistent daily use, Roots helps extend the growth phase and reduce shedding. It includes methylene blue, which supports mitochondrial function and delivers antioxidant benefits directly to the follicle. Whether you're dealing with postpartum hair loss or hormonal shifts or early signs of aging, Roots targets the root cause, literally. Head on over to twc.health/Turley and use code Turley to get 15% off plus free shipping. Again, that's twc.health/Turley and use code Turley to get 15% off and start looking your best today. So as you just saw, this was the scene from New York City yesterday when comptroller and mayoral hopeful Brad Lander got arrested by feds at an immigration court for intentionally meddling in ICE operations. Fox 5 reports Lander tried to sneak a man out to dodge detention when ICE agents intervened and arrested him. Now, of course, Lander is but the latest politician to get arrested. He joins the ranks of the pathetic California Democrat Senator Alex Padilla, as well as Representative LaMonica McIver, who are all demonstrating in their own unique ways the complete inability of progressive activists to distinguish between legitimate law enforcement and their own ideological fantasies. Case in point, just a couple of weeks back, when federal agents raided a restaurant on Lake Street in Minneapolis, social media rumors immediately labeled it an ICE raid, and those rumors triggered a massive protest response. The problem is that it wasn't an ICE raid. It was a drug bust, and we're talking massive, involving 900 pounds of crystal meth. And so these protesters, in effect, ended up acting as defenders for the drug dealers and ended up getting arrested by federal agents in the process. The cognitive mechanism at work here is what psychologists call confirmation bias, taken to its pathological extreme. So activists saw federal agents and immediately impose their radical ideological framework onto reality, regardless of the actual facts. And that's the key. This represents the complete breakdown of evidence-based reasoning in favor of narrative-driven perception, which is taking over the whole of America's left, even its politicians. And the consequence of this is that the protesters weren't just wrong. They were ironically defending the very criminal organizations that exploit the very immigrant communities they thought their protests were protecting. These protests gave these criminal organizations exactly what they needed: chaos, confusion, and interference with federal law enforcement operations. So this isn't mere irony. It's a perfect demonstration of how ideological possession renders people incapable of functioning in basic reality. I mean, these protesters ended up committing multiple federal felonies based solely on rumors they read on social media without making any attempt to verify the actual nature of the law enforcement operation. So this represents really nothing less than the complete abandonment of rational decision-making in favor of ideological reflex, a perfect case study in how progressive activism has devolved into mindless tribalism. And as that's bad enough, but as you may have guessed, this mindless tribalism extends right into the legacy media as well. Mainstream media outlets initially amplified the false ICE raid narrative without bothering to verify the facts. So this represents what media analysts call narrative laundering. It's the process by which false information gets legitimized through repetition rather than verification. The media's immediate assumption that any federal law enforcement activity must be immigration related reveals their own ideological biases and professional incompetence, right in line with these far left lunatics. So what we're witnessing here overall among both protests and press represents a fundamental breakdown in what cognitive scientists call reality testing, which involves the inability to distinguish between internal beliefs and external facts. It's an inability to distinguish between internal beliefs and external facts. So it's a form of projection when all's said and done, right? Where The radical biases of the far left are superimposed, they're projected on objective facts that the rest of us would interpret very, very differently because we don't share in that radical bias. So if we saw all these cop cars and law enforcement outside a city restaurant, we definitely conclude that obviously something was up, something was going down, however you want to choose your metaphor. But we wouldn't necessarily conclude it was an ICE raid. And that's because, frankly, we just want to make sure our internal beliefs they actually correspond to the external facts, and we don't know the external facts. But when you have a mass movement that's collectively suffering from TDS, Trump derangement syndrome, then you inevitably get what sociologists call collective delusion, when entire groups lose the ability to process information that contradicts their worldview. And if you think that through, the broader implications here are frankly staggering. If progressive activists cannot distinguish between legitimate law enforcement operations and their own ideological fantasies, how can they possibly be trusted to participate responsibly in democratic governance at all? I mean, when your movement's default response to federal law enforcement is violent resistance, you've obviously crossed the line from political opposition to criminal conspiracy. So all of this ends up providing conservatives with what political strategists call the perfect opponent. Activists so obviously wrong and counterproductive that they discredit their entire movement through their own actions. The video evidence that we're seeing coming in, particularly from those No Kings protests over the weekend, are so damning that it literally requires no commentary or interpretation. The activists indict themselves through their own absurd, lunatic behavior. These arrests perfectly encapsulate why swing voters are increasingly rejecting progressive activism. When your movement is indistinguishable from criminal obstruction of justice, you have lost the moral authority necessary for democratic persuasion. What we are seeing represents nothing less than the complete intellectual and moral collapse of American progressivism as a coherent political force. A movement that began by claiming to defend the vulnerable has devolved into literally defending criminals, human traffickers, and international drug cartels, all the while assaulting federal law enforcement officers and ICE agents. When the far left can no longer distinguish between legitimate law enforcement and their own political fantasies, they have disqualified themselves from responsible and civic participation in democratic institutions. We're not just witnessing the failure of progressive activism. We're observing the total breakdown of the cognitive skills necessary for citizenship itself.